So let's take a look at our assignment for this week. It will be assignment 5. So that is going to be project number 2, which is on page 676. But we need to go back to self-test exercise number 17 in order to get started with it. And that appears on page 641. Okay, so there's a class called pairs. For ordered pairs, sets of two numbers that are treated together. And they give you a short interface section to start off with. So let's start off by just copying that. Class pairs. And in the public section we have a default constructor and a constructor with two integer parameters. We have a couple of friends, one for getting input from an input stream, with the extraction operator, and one for sending a pair to an output stream with the insertion operator. You'll notice they've used the const on that second function just to guarantee to the compiler we will not be changing the value of that object. And then we have our two private member variables, f and s. Okay. So the self-test exercise is to implement the extraction operator and the insertion operator in the official exercise, the project on project number 2. In addition to the extraction operator and the insertion operator, we're also going to need to implement the default constructor, a constructor with one parameter, which we've already, well, with two parameters we've got a interface for. We also need one for one parameter, and then we're also going to need to implement addition, subtraction, and multiplication with the plus, dash, and asterisk operators. They give you the rule for adding pairs. Basically, you need to follow a corresponding rule for subtracting pairs. And then the asterisk operator on pairs and int will be implemented according to the second rule. And you are going to need a main program, or a main function, that exercises all of those. And what I suggest is that you use the extraction operator to input pairs from the user and use those to exercise all your other functions, plus, minus, and asterisk or multiply. And then when you're outputting your answers, you'll be using the insertion operator. So, anybody have an idea how to get started on that? Somebody like to share their coding window so we can take a look? Yes? Right. How would you write that? You want to say it, or would you like to share your programming window and we'll and we'll watch you. Okay. Yes. Okay, how would you do that? You're going to type something out and we'll take a look at it? You're trying to find an example of using of overloading the input operator, the extraction operator. There's an example in display 11.8, page 638, 639. Probably more complex than what we need, but you can get the basic syntax from that. And instead of IN stream, it's just iStream. So we're expecting a pair to be input in the format parenthesis, number, comma, number, close parenthesis. So okay. Now this is just the iStream operator. So I wouldn't suggest doing the prompting here. I would suggest prompting for it elsewhere. I mean, we don't. Yeah, we prompt for it in the main program and then call the extraction operator just using CN extraction into the pairs object that we created. And it should enforce the rules, make sure that they're typing it in properly. But this is basically the same way we use primitive functions. We tell them to enter an integer or a number or whatever type of data we're using, and we do that as part of our general prompt. Okay, now you're putting a literal value there. We can't get new data or put new data into a literal value, so you're going to need somewhere to put it. So one thing you could do is you could declare a character, and then after you get data into it, you could verify that it's what we were expecting. Is it an open parenthesis, for example? And we know that the standard CN or input stream extraction operator will skip over any white space we find, so we don't have to worry about that. As long as they do start with an open parenthesis, have a number, a comma, a number, and a close parenthesis, our standard extractions should work with those properly. Okay. Unless you're planning on doing something special with it, you might make it a more generic one, because we can just then use the same one for the open parenthesis, the comma, and the close parenthesis. And if we're going to verify them, you know, that's fine. Okay. Yeah, we probably are only going to be concerned about it if it's not equal. And if we're not, depending on what we're going to do, we may not even care. I mean, if the data doesn't turn out to be formatted the way we're expecting, maybe we may just be happy giving them bad results, but telling them invalid input would be helpful. Anyway, alright, so you got the open parentheses. If it wasn't an actual open parentheses, you told them that's wrong. What do you do next? Okay. What do we get next? Yeah, let's not bother with else, since we're not really doing anything with a bad symbol. We're just telling them about it. F and S would be the internal names of the two variables that we're holding on to our pairs with for pairs, and they're integers. Yep. Okay, but this is a friend function, it's not a member function, so we can't assume that we know, we can't officially use that. We have to refer to it by another name. So if you look at the example on page 639, even though they're referring to the internal variable all sense, they have to refer to it with the name of the parameter that they're using. So in your case, what is that? Pairs is the name of the class, so it would be like the type. That would be like referring to it as integer or character. What did we call it? It's the second parameter in our parameter list. What is it called? So the first parameter is called INS, the second parameter is called second. Right, okay. So you refer to the data that we're getting now as what? Second.f, right. Okay. What about the comma? So we're expecting them to input it with a parenthesis, a number, a comma, a number, and a close parenthesis. So in addition to right. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, that looks reasonable. There's one more thing before you're done. What's the last thing in your what should be the last thing in your function? Okay. All right, very good. Mr. Veskirk, would you like to show us how to program the insertion operator function? Did you have a question about how Mr. Fisher did the extraction operator? Okay, the insertion operator should be fairly simple. I'll go ahead and share my screen and we'll go through that part and see how that looks. In my version of the extraction operator, I didn't really do any checking on the values. If they weren't typed in correctly, we could potentially have a problem, but we're not really advanced enough at this point to do very effective feedback on how to make that work properly. So we're just hoping that they formatted it correctly, basically. Let's go on to the output stream insertion operator. Okay, in this case I've used the const keyword because the insertion operator is not going to change the value of our pairs object. And in this case, it's fairly straightforward. We know we're going to start with a parenthesis because that's the way we're formatting our pairs. Second is the name of our pairs object that we're passing to our function, and we're going to give it the f, or the first value of the pair, followed by a comma, followed by the second value of the pair, s, followed by a close parentheses. And again, we'll return our stream that we're passing the data to. So it'll work the way our insertion operators traditionally work. So once we have those in our main function, we can declare a pair, and I'm just going to declare an A and a B. And have the user input that. And then once I have those values, I'm going to need my other things. So the other things that you're going to want to put in here are another pairs constructor with a single value, you're going to need, in addition to your extraction operator and your insertion operator, a plus. Let's see if we have a sample for plus. We had one for money, right? So friend pairs operator plus so what does this mean? Well, this means that the result of this operation will be a pairs object. Const means we're not going to be changing the two objects we're starting with, so const pairs first, const pairs second. So there's plus, Same thing for minus. Same thing for asterisk. Once we have those defined, we should then be able to say pair 1, oops, plus pair 2 equals A plus B. As simple as that. A and B are both pairs. The plus operator is going to be defined by the friend of pairs that contains the two pairs objects. So let's see. Check out, see if they have a implementation. That you can use for reference. Let's see one though. So let's go ahead and go through one of these just to give you a better feel for it. Alright, so the money operator plus is on page 628, so that should help. Alright, so we're going to make a temporary pairs that we're going to then return to at the end of our function. And we said the plus rule is going to look like page 676. So in other words, A comma B plus C comma D equals A plus B comma C plus D. No, I'm sorry, A plus C comma B plus D. Alright, so temp F equals first F plus second F temp S equals first S plus second S. Does that make sense, everybody? Okay. What was the question? Okay. And then when we're done, we just return temp. Basically, that simple. So your mission is to do the same thing for minus and multiply. You could go ahead and say pair 1 minus pair 2 and do the subtraction part, right? Pair 1 minus pair 2 equals A minus B. And then something like pair 1, you could have an integer and say pair 1 times C, the integer, equals A times C. Make sense? So when you input A using the extraction operator, you're going to be using your extraction operator that you overloaded. And then when you do A plus B, you're going to be using your plus operator. A minus B is going to use your minus operator. A times C is going to use your times operator. And when you output those, it's going to use your insertion operator. Make sense? Everybody know what they've got set up to do for next week? All right. Any Yeah, it's pretty simple. Look back at that insertion. Basically, we're just referring to the first item of the pair and the second item of the pair, and we're just doing a little formatting like we normally do when we're outputting something. I'm just putting a parenthesis and a comma between them and a close parenthesis at the end. Make sense? What kind of errors are you getting? You going to show me your code and I'll see if I can tell what's happening? Okay, yes. Yes, but since this function is a friend of the pairs class, it can still access private members. So it's not letting you see second.f. Can you make your window a little wider so I can see the header? No, not, I'm sorry, not wider, deeper, longer. All right. So here's second. And let's go back up to the top to the interface. Yes. Okay, friend, pairs. Also, don't forget your ampersand on the O stream in the friend definition. Okay, but the one up at the top doesn't have an ampersand by the O stream before operator. Okay? Good. Any other questions? All right. Well, if something comes up during the week, you can send me an email or check for me on Google Plus, and I'll try to respond as quickly as possible. And otherwise, I guess I'll see you next week. All right. See ya.